This is always my least favorite video to make in the week, especially when we are dealing with this many injuries. We'll go ahead. We'll dive through them all. Hopefully help you submit your starting lineup for tomorrow. But anyway, Justin Herbert has the high ankle sprain. Obviously, you'd assume, high ankle sprain is going to be missing some time. Well, one, Justin Herbert is a straight up freak. And two, it's a quarterback position. So obviously don't need to have to be as mobile as what you'd see at receiver, as mobile as what you'd see at running back. Not going to be taking as many hits. So right now, Justin Herbert is actually questionable for this game. It does look like he could potentially play. Obviously, you're never starting Justin Herbert unless it's a super flex league. And honestly, if Herbert is limited in any capacity, or you are having to deal with a different quarterback in here, I'm just going to be lowering my overall expectations for this Los Angeles Chargers offense. And it's already a super tough matchup going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I was already going through and actually kind of looking at some of these lower marks for J.K. Dobbins here. And I don't mind going with the Dobbins fewer than 71.5 total yards, just given the fact that it is such a tough matchup going up against Pittsburgh. But one thing that I need to make sure we are doing is taking advantage of the free gimme pick that they have for our Longhorns. Hook 'em horns with Archie Manning. We're going to go ahead and put 10 on that to win 30. So we just need Manning to have at least 1 yard and then Dobbins to go for fewer than 71.5 to win that $30. But let's move this over to our next update. Tua, no plans to retire, does get placed on the IR. Obviously, he's not going to be playing this week. We'll talk about HN a little bit later with Raheem Mostert. But personally, I am really trying to pivot off of a Mr. Jalen Waddle here. And funny to see we have Danny in the chat. I actually went through and just made a trade with Danny specifically so I could pick up Cam Akers and I could avoid starting Jalen Waddle this week. If you look at the implied team total, Miami should be really, really tough. I do advise you getting away from Waddle if you potentially can. Like if you're going to go through and look at the updated projections that you have for Jalen Waddle here. Right now, they have Jalen Waddle higher, lower, 42.5 receiving yards. Just not really interesting at all with how bad this offense will be. But going over to our next update, Joe Mixon downgraded to out for week 3. Not only is Mixon looking like he is going to be out week 3, but there is also a chance that Joe Mixon's going to be missing week 4 as well. And then we're going to talk about this later on, but Dameon Pierce is going to be missing as well. So in my mind, this makes Cam Akers somebody that you have to start. Obviously, I don't think that Cam Akers is some phenomenal talent. I don't think that Cam Akers is one of the best 30 running backs in the NFL. No, not at all. But he is going into an offense that should be at the top of the NFL in points scored from week to week perspective that we have seen. They want to be a well-balanced attack and not just air it out 40, 50 times a game with CJ Stroud. And not only do you have no Mixon, but also you are looking at no Dameon Pierce. So I think Akers is an extremely viable play. Like I said, I am starting him over Jalen Waddle in the flock league. At my second flex, Waddle has a higher lower, 42.5 yards. Cam Akers is currently sitting here with a higher lower of 74.5 total yards. I think Akers is somebody that you kind of have to start. But of course, if you wanted to check out any of these pick'ems, if you wanted to go use that free Archie Manning, more than less than half total yard, hook 'em horns, you better support our Longhorns today. A free CeeDee Lamb pick, more than less than half total yard, an additional gimme pick. I'm up almost $300 with Underdog picks this year just because I'm taking advantage of these promos. And if you use promo code FLOCK, you're going to get all 3 of those plus an additional, if you are new, Patrick Mahomes free pick for Sunday night, more than less than half a total yard. And code FLOCK with the link in the description comment section will get you a free team review over there on flockfantasy.com from yours truly, and a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. So make sure you take advantage of that with the link in the live chat and description. But let's move this over to our next player. T. Higgins is going to be playing on Monday. If we are looking at T. Higgins here, I would highly recommend you put him in your starting lineup. This is a wide receiver that is a great matchup going up against Washington. This is a team that projects to be near the top of the NFL in total points scored. If you were playing in a full PPR format, I would rank T. Higgins as a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. And with all the injuries that we are dealing with this week, honestly, I think that is somebody that probably deserves consideration for your flex. Now, Tank Bigsby is going to be playing on Monday. Obviously, this has no impact on Bigsby himself. You're not going to go through and start him. Maybe it does mean, okay, still worth the roster spot knowing that he is healthy. But main thing is maybe you're just a little less excited about Travis Etienne. I'd still recommend starting Etienne. Like, I'd rather have Etienne over Cam Akers, of course. Now, Evan Ingram will be out on Monday. So I know that some people may want to go and pick up Brenton Strange. The reality is, I don't think any of the backup tight ends here in Jacksonville are that appealing. Last week, I thought no Evan Ingram meant that you were going to be getting more targets to Christian Kirk. Then Christian Kirk had -1 receiving yards. So honestly, not super excited about anybody here in Jacksonville outside of obviously we're starting Travis Etienne. And then if I were to start a receiver here, I would be starting Brian Thomas Jr. Now let's move this over. So Kenneth Walker listed as doubtful week 3. I believe Kenneth Walker has officially been ruled out, but it does sound like Walker's going to be trending towards playing in week 4. So I do want to reiterate, Zach Charbonnet will be a must-start player this week. Absolutely ridiculous to look at the projection on him currently. Higher, lower, 93.5 total yards on Underdog. Honestly, I know a lot of people may want to go take the lower. I would maybe advise against it because if you were looking at what you had last week, Charbonnet played 100% of the snaps, saw all the work in the red zone, saw all the work in the receiving game. Should be a much better matchup going up against Miami now that this is a situation in which Miami's traveling across the country. Seattle should be winning this game. They are favored by, I believe, 5-6 points. And I think that you may end up getting a ton of rush attempts for for Zach Charbonnet filling in the second half, where obviously this past week, that just wasn't the case in a very close game against the Pats. But please, please, please start Charbonnet. I know, yes, bro only got like 30 yards last week. He scored the touchdown. He had the usage as a receiver. And like I said, just realistically looking at the projections on Charbonnet, he's going to play 100% of the snaps in a plus matchup. You have to start him. Look what James Cook just did to this defense. Now going over DK Metcalf, fully good to go. Obviously, you are starting DK. AJ Brown is going to be listed as out for week 3. This doesn't change too many things. Here, maybe you do decide that all of a sudden you're a little more interested in going ahead and playing Dallas Goedert. But honestly, based off all the tight end injuries that you're dealing with right now and how bad tight end is in general, you're probably starting Dallas Goedert regardless if you have him. I'm not starting any wide receiver 2 here in Philly. Clearly, you start Barkley every week. Clearly, you start Devonta Smith every week. Clearly, you start Jalen Hurts every week. So none of that changes. Going over to Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson, not on the injury report. Does look like Ferguson's going to be somebody that you need to get in your lineup. Right now, he is sitting with one of the highest projections over there on Underdog for all tight ends at higher, lower, 37.5 receiving yards. Obviously, I don't want to reiterate, all projections are always going to be extremely low on the tight end position. It's just a position that doesn't have nearly as much volume as wide receiver. So never be playing a tight end in the flex spot. I know some people want us to throw tight ends into our flex rankings, but my thing is, if you're considering a tight end for the flex, probably should be looking to sell a tight end to a team that really needs one. Now, CeeDee Lamb, not listed on the injury report, 100% good to go. Not a surprise. Josh Downs, not listed on the injury report. For sure, I'm not playing Josh Downs. The passing volume hasn't been there in this offense. I don't necessarily think that you can be super, super excited to come out and say that all of a sudden Anthony Richardson's going to be significantly better now that Downs is in the lineup. The reality of the situation is Josh Downs is a player that you need to have on your roster. But at the same time, I don't necessarily know if we need to be actually starting him this week. Roman Wilson, not listed on the injury report. Great for all my Underdog teams that I took Roman Wilson around 18 with. I would love a couple Roman Wilson spike weeks. If you wanted to roster him, you can, but honestly, probably a player just to throw on the watch list. And if he does have a good week here, then you pick him up off the waiver wire. The issue is, obviously, it's just a garbage Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Now, T. Higgins plans to go on Monday. I think we already maybe mentioned this. He does feel 100%. Please start T. Higgins. So George Kittle, not seen at practicing in Friday. Plus, we actually just got the notification at the start of this live stream that George Kittle is officially ruled out for this game. So if you're going to go ahead and try to project things out here for these 49ers, I am panicking and I am trying to get off of Brock Purdy. The projections have Purdy higher, lower, 230.5 passing yards. Obviously, he's not going to be running the ball much at all. They have him at 16.85 total fantasy points. I actually went through and made a move in the Flock League where I was planning on starting Brock Purdy until both Debo and Kittle are ruled out. Then obviously we're kind of panicking, where I went ahead and I dropped Caleb Williams. So instead I could pick up Geno Smith and put Geno Smith into my starting lineup over Brock Purdy. If you look at the projections on Sleeper, just the total points, they were saying that Purdy should score more, but the higher lower on Underdog actually has Geno ahead of him. And knowing that Metcalf's fully good to go, knowing that the injuries are there in San Fran, I would look to pivot off of Purdy if you can, while at the same time, obviously we can say that Ayuk is a must-start player, and you can look at Juwan Jennings if you are desperate for that flex play. Now, Nico Collins, not listed on the injury report. Obviously, maybe a little concerning with him missing practice at the beginning of the week, dealing with a couple nagging injuries, but looks like he's 100% good to go. I mean, locked and loaded, top 5-ish receiver this week. Dameon Pierce listed out for week 3 as well. So this is why I went out there and I traded with Danny. I wanted to get Cam Akers in because with no Mixon and no Pierce, Akers should have pretty much everything on first and second down. So I am starting Cam Akers in my second flex spot this week. And honestly, I think you could as well. Now, Justin Jefferson officially not listed on the injury report this week. Jefferson will be a fine play. Jordan Addison is ruled out for week 3. I know maybe some people are going to see this and go, oh, Jalen Naylor can be a sneaky start. I would rather start someone like Juwan Jennings. I mean, the thing is with Jefferson here, Jefferson can just dominate with 30-35% of this offense. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a guaranteed spot to get anything of relevance from a waiver wire fill-in like Jalen Naylor. Now, Keenan Allen listed out. So bump DJ Moore, bump presumably Roma Dunze. But the passing volume hasn't been there in Chicago. Having no Keenan Allen, I still think hurts Caleb Williams. It looks like Caleb's not going to be startable anytime soon, which is why I did drop him for Geno Smith this week. Kareem Hunt not going to play week 3. Now, obviously, you have no Isaiah Pacheco week 3 either. So all of a sudden, I mean, it does become pretty appealing to potentially go out there and put Carson Steele into your starting lineup. Samaje Perine can be a desperation play if you play in a full PPR format. My personal expectation is you get a lot of Carson Steele on first and second down, a lot of Perine on third downs, as well as the 2-minute drill. Now, David Njoku and Pierre Strong both listed out for week 3. I think you're going to continue to see a lot of targets going in the direction of someone like Amari Cooper. Amari should be better in week 3 than he was through the first 2 weeks. And having no Pierre Strong does make it a little more appealing to play Jerome Ford, but obviously keep in mind, Deonta Foreman actually outsnapped Jerome Ford this past week. So Ford is no longer just a must-start player, and instead he's a running back that you can consider there at RB2. Now, Michael Pittman Jr., good to go for week 3. You can start him if you need to. Probably ranking him as that low-end wide receiver 2 flex play appeal. I do think that Downs coming into this offense potentially scales back some of the targets that you should expect going in the direction of Pittman. And Raheem Mostert unlikely to play week 3. I know everybody got super upset when we decided to rank Devon Achane there as a low-end RB1 this week rather than a high-end RB1. The reason being is we are projecting Mostert to be coming back into this offense and this to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. But now that Mostert's not going to be playing this week, Achane goes right back to being that high-end RB1, especially based off the reception volume you should see in this offense. I do want to reiterate from a long-term perspective, knowing that this is supposed to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL, if you could sell Achane and go get an elite receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Justin Jefferson, I still would pivot from Achane to one of those stud receivers that you have no questions about. I am worried about this Miami Dolphins offense, but still clearly Achane looks to be that high-end RB1 with no Mostert in. And then I think that should be it. Obviously, there are a few. I guess we can talk about Jordan Love. Jordan Love does look to be a game time decision. And with Love, if he does play, the reports are saying that it doesn't look like he's going to be at 100%. But still, I mean, you could go ahead and you could start Jaden Reed if you really wanted to, if Jordan Love does play. The Packers defense is probably a more viable play as well if you have Jordan Love in this game, because you should actually see the Packers be leading the majority of this contest. Now, if you have Love, I'm not starting him this week, even if he does play, because I would expect there to pretty much be no rushing upside at all. And like I said, the reports are saying that he is potentially going to be limited here. But I do want to reiterate also, if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the description, in the comment section. Highly recommend taking advantage of some of these gimme picks like the Arch Manning, more than less than half a total yard for today. Hook'em Lawrence, I will be watching that game, of course. The CeeDee Lamb, more than less than half a total yard for Sunday. You have an additional gimme pick as well. I'm up almost $300 on Underdog picks this year. Not because I'm good at them, but because I'm taking advantage of the promos. Highly recommend you take advantage of the promos as well. And if you're new to Underdog Fantasy, with a link in the description comment section, you can also get a free Patrick Mahomes pick, more than less than half a total yard over there. on Underdog with the link in the description comment section. Code FLOCK will also get you a free team review from yours truly in one of the live streams that we are hosting every single night through flockfantasy.com. Just make sure after you deposit $10 on Underdog with code FLOCK, you set up an account on flockfantasy.com with the same email address as your Underdog account. That way I can accredit you with your free team review voucher. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, I really do appreciate you. I'll be answering all questions in the live stream later tonight. So I really hope I get to see you there. And hook 'em horns, we are rooting for our guy Manning in this game.